Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, you'll notice that I have been posting lessons on this channel before. They've been part of an initiative that I started about 15 years ago of imparting higher learning for madrasa graduates and contemporary learning from a Quranic perspective. What I'll be doing now uh, insha'Allah, is to actually look at the source instead of looking at the various branches of learning that I have been dealing with in these lessons, but to look at the source of that learning, which is the Holy Quran. So this is will now be dedicated lessons which are in Quranic learning, in the Holy Quran, durus al Quran, Quranic lessons, insha'Allah. So really the first thing that I should do is introduce myself, because a lot of people, a lot of you won't be familiar with me, and you should also question my credentials for teaching the Holy Quran. So I'll start with a word or two about myself, introduce myself, and what you should. There's a saying which many of you will be familiar with of Ibn Sirin, who is from the generation that followed the companions of the Holy Prophet. And Ibn Sirin said that you should be very careful from whom you take your religion. You should be very careful. Inna hazal ilmu dinun. This inna hazal ilma dinun. This knowledge of religion, of the Quran, is your religion. Fanzuru amman ta'khuduna dinakum. So be very careful from whom you take your religion. So it's only right that you should question my credentials, and that I should try and put your minds at rest on that count. So I became Muslim. I was brought up as a Christian I was born in the West Indies, actually, and I was brought up in England. I went to school in England mainly, and I went actually to a Jesuit school, which is which are staunch Catholics. So the Jesuits are noted as famed theologians, and so I went to a Jesuit school, and I left that school with my A levels, and not particularly good results, I'm afraid, but anyway, I'll come on to that. And so the Jesuits, I think I became frustrated with many aspects of Christianity, and I'll be going on to that. I'll be coming on to that, particularly insha'Allah, particularly in the third surah of the Holy Quran, which deals very much with Christianity, particularly in the first part of Surah Al Imran, the third surah of the Holy Quran. So I'll be coming on to that. And so then, I was lucky in a way that I left school in 1968, and this was, as some of you social historians will know, this was the time of the hippie exodus from the British Isles and from other places. The hippie exodus, and the hippie trail, and so we were all going east and seeking spiritual enlightenment, all as hippies at that time, and so I also joined the exodus, and I did eventually, which was my aim, was not to go to Pakistan or Afghanistan, which is the countries where I sort of accepted Islam, amongst the Pashtun people, Pashto-speaking people, who've become quite famous because of the various wars in Afghanistan. Perhaps they've become more famous than they were when in the late 60s. But because of the struggles of Afghanistan over the last few decades. Anyway, so that's the country that I became Muslim in. And there was actually, it might seem strange to some of you that someone should go to that part of the world and become Muslim. It didn't seem strange to us at all, because that was the summer of 1969, and there was a spate of conversions to Islam at this time in the actual valley where I was living in North Pakistan. And one person who you might know his name, Abdus Samad Zamzami, he was quite well known amongst British Muslim circles, and wider than and beyond the British Isles he was well known. And also another person who became Muslim in that summer was Kenneth Honekamp, perhaps better known as Abdul Hadi, but also quite well known in his capacity as Professor of Arabic at the University of Georgia at Athens, so quite well known as Kenneth by his original name, Kenneth Honekamp. So I should say that my name is John Muhammad Butt, and so the Pashtuns know me as Haji John Muhammad, and otherwise I generally go by my original name, John Butt, which is pretty Islamic name. So, but John Muhammad Butt. So anyway, this so that's I'll just go into my Quranic education, because I think, as I sort of alluded to earlier, I was a bit of a as well as being theologians, the Jesuits are very great classicists. So I think I was a sort of maybe a frustrated type of classicist, in that I hadn't acquired classical learning as I might have done, Latin and Greek classical learning I'm talking about now, amongst when I was being educated by the Jesuits. But instead of that, I acquired Farsi and Arabic classical learning after becoming Muslim. So I set about really acquiring a second education as soon as I became Muslim, and I was only a boy. I was 19 when I became Muslim. So that's then as far as the Quranic education was concerned, this there was people who are from that part of the world will attest to this. Many people, the people there are Pashto speakers. They're not Arabic speakers, so they don't understand the Quran like an Arab person, a person who's brought up in Arab countries, would sort of understand the Quran, because it's his or her mother tongue. But people in that part of the world don't. They have to acquire learning of the meaning of the Quran. And actually, there was a lot of resistance to even translations of the Holy Quran. The first person who did a translation of the Holy Quran was Shah Waliullah. This is his translation of the Holy Quran, as you can see here. It's the Farsi translation is written underneath the Arabic. Is written underneath the Arabic. So this was the first translation that was done in Farsi, and he had rotten vegetables thrown at him in the streets of Delhi because he had the temerity to do a translation, to write a translation in Farsi of the Holy Quran. There was a lot of resistance to this, but as one thing that I will mention again and again is that there's two parts to the Quran. One is what is called the nazm, the text of the Holy Quran, wal ma'na, and the other is the meaning of the Holy Quran. So the text, of course, one learns that, and people in the Pashtun lands where I became Muslim were like everybody else in South Asia. First of all, they learned the text of the Holy Quran, النظم. The Al-Quranu ismun lil-nazmi wal-ma'na jami'an. The Quran, the word the Quran refers to the nazm, to the text of the holy book, and also to the meaning. So both. So one has to, of course, the text, which is in Arabic, is supremely important, but the meaning is also very important. So that's something that for some reason or other, the people who opposed Shawulullah for writing his translation of the Holy Quran overlooked was the importance of knowing the meaning of the Holy Quran. It goes without saying, really. But in those days, there was a lot of resistance, and that resistance really carried on. Besides, despite efforts of a certain number of Islamic scholars for the learning of the Quran, learning of the meaning of the Quran to become widespread. That carried on, and even when I became Muslim, I was fortunate enough that there was a coterie of Islamic scholars who were dedicated, who were students of an Islamic scholar whose name was Maulana Muhammad Tahir, and he lived in Panjpir village near the banks of the river Indus, and his students were very prominent when I became Muslim. So as I set about my task of acquiring my second education and my classical Arabic, my classical Islamic education, so they were very prominent. There was one living in the village next to me, the village where I became Muslim, and of course I went to him to study the Quran. So he was my first teacher, and then I studied with 3 or 4 actually students of the Sheikh al-Quran before I actually studied twice, completed the Quran with the Sheikh himself, the Sheikh al-Quran Maulana Muhammad Tahir, once in 1973 and once in 1979. So when I actually studied with him the Holy Quran in 1979, I came back from Darul Deoband, which is the preeminent seat of Islamic learning in South Asia. And I was lucky to have a British passport, and so I was able to travel easily from Peshawar to Deoband, and I spent 6 years there. 6 years there, acquiring, besides the knowledge of the Quran, but I studied in Deoband. I studied tafsir with Mufti Shakil Ahmad Sitapuri, who was a very eminent Quranic scholar in Deoband, and he taught tafsir. So that was in the 6th year of my Deoband study. So that's a word about me, because that's important that I should mention what my qualifications are for teaching the Holy Quran. I'm probably not going to be going on to actually, because I want to keep these lessons quite short for various reasons. Hopefully they'll get a bit longer, but I want to keep them to 10 or 15 minutes, and I don't know how long I've been going on for now, but it's about 15 minutes. So I'll be carrying on, probably we'll be having 2 more lessons in the on Surah al Fatihah, which Qari Abdurrahman Sudais kindly recited to you at the beginning of our lesson, and so I'll be probably sending 2 more lessons. But today's lesson was really by way of introduction and to make me hopefully a little bit more comfortable speaking in front of the camera. Wa akh dawana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.